Now, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
23.
23. So.
And we are live.
Yay.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast. And we're doing it right now. Like, we're doing it good on time. So, we're doing good.
Yes, this is a night to remember.
It is. So, welcome, everyone, for who's new joining us. This is the 180 podcast. My name's Elizabeth, but I also go by Ellie.
And my name is Tara, and I just go by Tara. I don't know. I didn't think that. No. But yes, we have a very interesting guest tonight. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Will Donahue. I'm the president of College Republicans of America, recent graduate of Loyola Marymount University Poli-Sci, and currently enrolled at the University of Notre Dame School of Law.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wow. How has that been?
I'm on medical leave right now. I go back in January, but I completed my first semester last year.
Oh, that's
Okay,
good. That's
yeah.
very good. Well, that's very good to hear.
Wow. So, let's start off by, so you kind of told us about yourself a little bit. Tell us about your college, like, why did you want to go into college? Because today we're seeing that there's a lot of other options, right? You can go straight into the field, and some things aren't being stressed as much as going to college. So why'd you choose that route?
Initially, I wanted to become a doctor. I had a friend die of leukemia in fourth grade, so I, for a long time, wanted to be a pediatric oncologist. I worked in a lab in high school studying pancreatic cancer, and decided to go pre-med in college. All the colleges that I was applying to had pre-med programs. Loyola Marymount had a very good one, so I ended up choosing to go there.
Yeah.
So that's probably the short story of why I decided to go to college. I clearly didn't follow through on med school because I found a different passion in life in politics. Yeah. But that's why I decided to go to college.
Okay, now why politics? What made you say, I want to go for politics?
Yeah, because it is a very, intimidating field to be going in, right?
Well, with my political ideology, yeah, it is. My mom definitely wasn't happy about it. My freshman year, I had joined Young Americans for Freedom, and just got a taste of what the current political climate was like. Even being a Catholic university, Loyola Marymount's campus is very, very far left, and our administration is just as bad. There were a number of attacks on our Catholic faith and doctrine by the administration during my 4 years here there, and I can go into that all night if you wanted to. How much time you have? I'll just the short story is basically that I got fed up with the administration and academia's treatment of conservatives, and noticed as time went on that the political climate is clearly that America's in decline. And after getting involved with Young Americans for Freedom and eventually starting a college Republican chapter, I had a conversation with my parents. And I was like, as much as I want to help people going through med school and being a doctor, we got bigger issues right now, and the current political arena is in shambles. So I told my parents, you know, to hell with med school. I'm gonna go fix the country, Mom. And she kind of rolled her eyes and said, "Do what you want, honey." And I re-enrolled as a poli-sci student.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Now
wonderful.
you're talking about. I mean, there's a lot of issues that we're having. What are some issues that you believe are like, let's say, top 3?
Wow, that's a really hard question.
We'll give you a minute.
Clearly, immigration is at the top of the list. We've got serious immigration problems. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people coming across the border every year.
Can you digress on that?
Yeah, you know, the end of Title 42 recently just happened. Breitbart and some other news agencies were reporting that there were 700,000 people waiting at the border for the end of Title 42, of which, you know, a lot of people snuck across illegally. There are, you know, obviously lots of people that are trying to come to this country and create a better life for themselves. And you know, coming from an immigrant family, I have a big heart for that kind of thing. But you know, with a lot of things in politics, we can't really look at it from an emotional angle. We have to look at it, you know, very practically. Like, what is the effect that this policy is going to have on the American people? You know, and as of a couple of years ago, I haven't checked the numbers recently, but the Center for Immigration Studies had posted that you know, illegal immigration was a net drain of over $200 billion per year on the American taxpayer. And you know, illegal immigration doesn't really hurt rich white Americans, right? It hurts the lowest class, and especially the immigrant class. You know, many immigrants come over and they don't necessarily take on the high skill labor jobs. But they're citizens and they get paid a fair wage and they get benefits by these jobs. And instead, you get people coming across the border, and in the great majority of cases, they're just trying to make a better life for their family.
Yeah.
But they end up getting paid a lot less because they don't have a social security number, right? So they're not tracked, they get paid in cash. And the people that waited their turn 10, 15 years to come over end up losing their job to someone who didn't wait their turn.
So
you know,
I'm curious, who was responsible for that large mass of people coming across recently with the 42? What is that, by the way? What is Title 42? What
Title
is that?
42, it was a policy that Trump had put in during COVID for catch and release.
What does it mean?
It was to prevent immigration from the southern border during COVID, to protect the American people during the pandemic. You know, the laws that should be on the books are nobody's allowed entry into the United States without going through proper procedure and the legal process. But you know, with the end of Title 42 and a lax democratic administration, in short terms, President Biden and Vice President Harris and their Department of Homeland Security are incredibly lax on letting these immigrants in. So rather than processing them at the border, lots of these people are just coming in illegally, and there's nothing we can do about it. So you end up having some of the southern states taking the huge hit of large numbers of people coming into the community without jobs. Many of them have to be stored in hotels and other types of shelters. There was a story recently that a woman had a wedding planned, and a lot of the people that were supposed to be coming to her wedding, her friends and family, were going to be staying at the hotel, and everyone had to be removed from the hotel to house all of these immigrants that were coming in.
Wow.
And so I don't actually know what happened with that, but it's destructive for a country when you don't have a secure border. And as much as we want to be loving and open to people coming across, like we need to have a secure border, and no other country in the world, no matter how strong we think they are our democratic allies, every country has a strong border patrol. Recently, many Democrats will look at countries like Sweden or Denmark as these pillars of this democratic socialism that they want to see. Little do they know, many of these countries recently just kicked all of the Muslim immigrants out of their country. Like, how democratic is that?
Yeah.
And
Wow.
You want to talk about racist immigration policies in Japan? You can't even get citizenship unless you have Japanese blood. So if you go to Japan, you have a Japanese wife, you have a Japanese child, you can't have Japanese citizenship. So, how racist really is America? We are the most accepting, loving country in the world. We bring in millions of people every year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think it's too much to ask for that we tighten security, make sure that we're checking every single person that comes across the border, doing background checks, locking down a lot of the drugs that are flying across. I mean, we're
absolutely. Oh my goodness.
We're losing hundreds of thousands of Americans to fentanyl every year, and it's all coming across the southern border.
You know, that is talking about like the bigger effects. I know we mentioned the wedding thing, and I think a lot of people will think about that and say, well, you know, a wedding happened, but these people's wedding got messed up, but people's lives are at stake, you know. But talking about the drug crisis, it's like, yeah, fentanyl is easy to make. It's made in Mexican dirt, you know. There's documentaries on that, and that is truly a like very threatening thing, not just to like not even just to like the party culture. Like it's entered into it's like colliding with the pharmaceutical companies prescribing fentanyl, and then these people get so addicted to it that they start buying street fentanyl, even if they're just like a totally like random middle-aged person working a 9-to-5 job. So it's just gotten way too easy to get fentanyl lately. I think that's very threatening.
Yeah, the fentanyl problem is a real issue, but beyond that, right? Like, think about it this way: these families watch the news and they see Joe Biden and Kamala Harris incentivizing them to come to the United States. Like, you know, if you're an asylum seeker, just come, right? And they're not upholding any of their laws. They're just letting people in. So people are selling everything they have. They're giving absurd amounts of money to these coyotes to traffic them all the way up, you know, through Mexico, through however many countries they have to get through to get here. Half of them, you know, like get separated from their children or drown in the Rio Grande. I mean, the number of human trafficking cases that we're seeing from these caravans is insane. I mean, I saw a story the other day that this poor little girl, teenage girl, was found murdered and, you know, had, I don't know what the age of our viewers are, but it had 63 semen samples found inside of her. Like, this is the kind of stuff that's happening at the southern border, and the Democrats are incentivizing it. I mean, it's a humanitarian crisis.
Yes.
I mean, from human trafficking to slaves to, you know, all these other things that are happening at the southern border, it is toxic what these Democrats are allowing to happen. We need to lock down the border and have stronger border policies, or people are going to continue to get hurt.
Yeah.
So, why do you think our leadership is telling people to come over the border? Why would they want them to be coming over?
I think from the Democrat perspective, it's very simple. They get more voters. You know, if they incentivize people to come across the border and they're sitting there, many times these Democrats have tables. They register people, you know, whenever they can when coming across the border. They have a child here. They have an anchor baby. They become citizens. Who do they vote for? Democrats. They're not voting for Republicans. Most of these people are conservative. Most of these people are you know, Catholic, have very conservative, you know, family values, but they vote Democrat because the Democrats let them in. And so, you know, from a political perspective, you can grow your voter base very simply this way. You know, there's a video that I think every student should watch. It's called Rules for Rulers. And the main premise of this is that there are keys to power, and different governments are run differently. So for autocratic regimes, you know, the keys to power are your military and your head government officials. You pay them off and you get lots of productivity from, actually it's a lack of productivity from your people, but you don't like get taxes from them. You just have them mine for resources. It's like the resource curse or something. But in democratic states, the main purpose is to increase productivity, have all of your key voting blocks, right? So for Republicans, our voting block tends to be older white people, evangelicals, more religious people, not a lot of young people, right? The Democrat voter block tends to be minorities, specifically blacks and Asians, less so Hispanics these days. You know, overwhelmingly the youth generation and immigrants. And so if they can grow their voter block, they're going to. You know, I have no doubt, there's no doubt in my mind, if illegal immigrants came into this country, had children, and voted Republican, the Democrats would be the first ones to shut down the border. No doubt.
Wow. Yeah. I think that's a very interesting thought, because it all just comes down to the polls, right? And it's just like, it just, I don't know. I think there's a lot of mystery there. Like, why, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like there's just a lot of mystery there, and I'm not gonna go into like all the different conspiracies, but it's just like, it leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. You know what I mean? Like, it's just.
Well, I think the main issue is that most people don't know what's happening. Right?
Yeah.
They don't pay attention. They don't look at the statistics. Like, Cesar Chavez, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Cesar Chavez was a Democrat or Republican.
Republican.
He was Republican.
Yeah.
Really?
Cesar Chavez, was he in favor of illegal immigration, like helping legal immigrants come? No, he wasn't.
Oh my goodness.
Because legal immigration overwhelmingly hurts first-generation immigrants.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Cesar Chavez was a strong conservative.
Wow.
But the Democrats have
I didn't know
put
that.
it into everyone's mind. Cesar Chavez was a Democrat, and these are the policies we have. We support immigrants. It's like, do you really support immigrants? Because it sounds like you're hurting a lot of people by telling them that they can come in.
Yeah.
And then they get stuck at the border. I mean, how many bodies do we find outside of our border walls every year because the Democrats tell these people to come?
That's awful.
The Democrats say they're the party of love and representation, the party of minorities, but the truth of the matter is they don't care about these people. They only care about their votes. And it's kind of sickening.
Absolutely. And they use like euphemisms almost as like freedom, choice, love, you know what I mean, tolerance. I honestly think tolerance has become its own religion. You can kind of see it, like, just based on how people worship it, I mean,
yeah, in a lot of ways the Democrat political agenda has become a religion in itself, and it's mandated in a lot of these industries. Hollywood is one of the worst, right? If you don't abide by everything that the quote unquote democratic religion has to offer, you're branded a heretic, right? You have executives in Hollywood that'll come out and say one thing, and the entire mob will come out against them, try to cancel them. It's pretty bad. There's no freedom of thought over there.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I'm kind of seeing that from another perspective too. I see people trying to cancel Disney, and personally just don't believe in like canceling in general. I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Like, do you think we should cancel Disney after hearing all the what? Okay. Why? But aren't we just partaking in it? I mean, cancel culture.
Because the way the left cancels people, it's permanent, right? If you come out as a conservative in Hollywood, you're never going to get a job again. Doesn't matter what you say. When conservatives boycott companies, it's because they don't like the woke agenda that they have. So, like, most recently, I'm sure you heard about this. Bud Light had a marketing campaign with a transgender on the can, and Americans went, "We are tired of corporations pushing a woke agenda down our throats, and so we're just not going to buy Bud Light until they fix this," right? Gillette, for instance, had a transgender man shaving. Don't grow facial hair. You got, so this was the funniest one. Ford Trucks just unleashed a commercial, and it had the F-150 Raptor, one of the biggest testosterone, manliest cars on the market, and they painted rainbow flags across it. Like, really?
I heard about that too.
Which left coast elites that care about climate change are going to buy a car that gets 16 miles to the gallon? Like, that is the most absurd marketing strategy I've ever seen. And so conservatives are going, look, if you're going to continue to push these woke narratives in our faces, we're just not going to buy your products anymore until you fix it. So it's not a permaban. It's like, stop pushing this down our throats. And for Disney, parents don't want their children seeing these things at a young age, right? The sexualization on Disney is really, really bad. I wouldn't want my young children watching that either. There's no reason that they need to be exposed to LGBTQ ideas or identities, at that young of an age. I mean, we got TV shows designed for 5 and 6 year olds displaying, drag queens and, same-sex interactions. Like, no 6-year-old needs to see that. It's only going to confuse them. And like even if it was, if it was heterosexual, right, like interactions, like children don't need to see that either. Let children be children.
I have a question though. Did you ever watch SpongeBob growing up?
I did.
You did watch SpongeBob. See, there were parents who tried to hide their kids from SpongeBob. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I mean, do you remember those kids that weren't allowed to watch SpongeBob?
I mean, I don't want to say SpongeBob was edgy, but it definitely like wasn't great all the time. I ended up watching, a lot of like Power Rangers and stuff growing up.
Power Rangers.
Yeah. But my whole point is it's hard as a parent. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a lot of like conviction happening with me personally too. You know, it's just like, oh man, this is, how do you navigate this? Because if you want quality stuff, it's like Disney has like decade, you know, they've been, I mean, like what, a century of like developing their art. So it's just like, it's like, okay, like mediocre cartoons or whatever on other platforms, or like very pristine fine art on like this woke platform, you know. So it's just kind of like not an easy space to live in, I feel like.
I grew up on Disney.
Yeah.
My parents showed me The Lion King and Mulan and Bambi growing up. Show your kids the old Disney stuff. Those old Disney shows are great for children.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's a good middle ground, I guess. I don't know.
Kind of going off on a different topic, kind of, but we're seeing the whole entire, I guess, agenda being pushed throughout media, and we currently have companies, I guess, giving us one narrative right now. But you were also mentioning earlier about how Cesar Chavez, he was Republican, right? So we're seeing even our schooling systems being filled with just this one narrative and our history being changed. How are some ways that we can actually educate people that don't know about these things?
That's a great question. I think PragerU is a terrific start. PragerU's got a full a line of videos on a lot of historical concepts. I know that there are a couple TV shows currently in production that are more, civically, nationalist minded. But a lot of these narratives coming out of education right now are trying to teach our children to hate this country. And, there have been several philosophers, historians, famous people throughout time that have shared the notion that the minute you start to hate your country crumbles, right? You cannot have a strong country when its citizens hate itself. And so this revisionist history that they're starting to teach in schools, I think is really dangerous, right? When we go back and we look at historical figures throughout time and criticize them for every little thing, like for instance, Thomas Jefferson, our founding fathers, our teachers these days, and our education systems in Common Core, which have you believe that the founding fathers were incredibly racist. They hated black people and they kept them in slavery. What they won't tell you is that wasn't all the founding fathers. Sure, there were a couple founding fathers from the South that genuinely were racist, and there's, you have to accept parts of your history like that. Thomas Jefferson wasn't one of them. Sure, he owned slaves. Thomas Jefferson also, when he was first appointed to the legislature in Virginia in 1769, his first bill that he put forward was to abolish slavery in Virginia. Nobody talks about this. 7 years before the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson was advocating for the end of slavery. George Washington and Jefferson took very good care of their slaves. George Washington released all of them upon his death. And one of the things that Thomas Jefferson talked about oftentimes was this idea of like holding the wolf behind the ears. You may have heard this quote before. Picture this. You have a society where slavery is okay. We haven't established our God-given natural rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness yet. Liberty isn't a thing for black people because many people don't see them as human. And now you've got a society of slaves that have no education, they're illiterate, they have no access to any sort of type of jobs, and half of the country is adamant that they keep them in slavery because the entire economy is based on agriculture around slavery. Every slave that got released from the North was recaptured and sent south. So even the northern states that had slaves, these slave masters weren't necessarily let them go because they were just going to get sold back into slavery in a much worse environment. And not only that, like look at today, right? We have people on the streets that don't have any life skills, don't have any ability to function in society. Picture a slave who's known nothing but slavery his entire life and is illiterate. You release them all at once and say, go make a life for yourself. What are they going to do? You're holding a group of people back. You haven't taught them anything. You're just going to release them all at once? Like, that's going to hurt them more than anything else. I mean, and that sounds like a horrible thing to say, but if you really think about that logically, what are these people going to do? They can't get jobs in the cities because they can't read or write. All they're going to be able to do are pick up labor jobs in a country that is still, not up to date on human rights or inherent human dignity. I mean, they're going to be treated poorly in society, and so this needed to be a slow process. George Washington once said that nothing would make him happier than to see the end of slavery, but it needed to be a slow process. And so the first thing they did was they ended the slave trade, and then they slowly started teaching blacks how to read and write, and slowly tried to release some and get them back into society. And then Frederick Douglass came later and was advocating at the press and national level, like, black people are human too. Black people have inherent dignity. We should have our liberty. And we slowly changed the hearts and minds of the American people until we passed the 13th and 14th Amendment. And that is really the best way it could have happened. I mean, if you think about slavery for a second, the United States, they'd have you believe we were the most racist, slaveholders in the entire world. The United States only had 2% of the slaves in the slave trade. Most of them went to the Caribbean, Brazil, right? We had 2% of the slave trade. We were one of the first countries to end the slave trade and one of the first countries to end slavery.
Wow.
For decades after that, the Caribbean and South America were still running the slave trade.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say that's because it was, it was found on a lot of biblical principles, and it was like, like nowhere in the Bible does it advocate for slavery. I mean, it mentions slaves, but it never says like, yeah, go enslave another human being. No, it's like you are all equal under God. If you're under those principles, it's like it's hypocritical. So that's probably one reason behind that, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people try to paint the Bible as this book that encourages slavery. It really doesn't. It's really a non sequitur. That's a much longer discussion to get into. But
we only have half an hour.
Yeah, and also, this was a time, right, when the idea of inherent human dignity wasn't a thing. Every country in the world had slavery, and so the idea that a divinely inspired document that would immediately say that slavery is wrong. I mean, at the same time, God told Moses to release all the slaves from Egypt, right? I mean, there are other lines throughout the Bible that talk about the wrongs of slavery and oppression.
Yeah.
But I think that's a much longer discussion. That's probably what
I kind of want to switch gears here because we touched on something that I think is very relevant, just the principle of it. But it's you're very involved in colleges, right? So you see college culture. Wouldn't you say right now that like people our age are so unprepared?
Absolutely.
For like, cause it's just unprepared. Like, is college really preparing people for the storm wave that is being a citizen, in 2023? And
no, it's not. It's not. A lot of the core classes you get in college are classes that you've taken in high school and middle school, right? A lot of repeats in history, a lot of repeats in literature. College isn't what it used to be, and there's a growing number of individuals that are advocating for personal finance classes to be taught in high school, because a lot of kids aren't getting it in college, and one of the number one
debt
indicators.
Is it debt?
I mean, debt is huge, but number one indicators of wealth is investing over time, right?
Yeah.
And students don't learn these things until they get into the job force. Like most individuals in our age group don't know that you can set up a Roth IRA and slowly put up to $6,000 a year into it, and that's non-taxable income when you retire. One of the first things they teach you in personal finance is that if you put a couple $1,000s away and put it into mutual funds and let it grow over the course of your lifetime. There's a rule of 72, right? If you're getting 7.2% like dividend or return on your investment from a mutual fund every year, your money's going to double every 10 years. Right?
Ooh.
That is something that most kids don't know.
I didn't know that.
Right here. And the thing is, because it's an over time sort of thing, the earlier you start investing, the more money is going to be available for your retirement.
Yeah.
If they just taught people that when they were in high school or college, you'd have people that were able to retire and wouldn't have to work for the rest of their lives.
Probably
have a nice, nice nest egg.
Why are we so unprepared? Or like, let's say like our generation, why are they so unprepared? Is there people who are purposely doing this, and why?
I think we're distracted, honestly. You know what I mean? I mean, tell us about college culture, just from a male perspective. Tell us about what is it like to be a 20-something-year-old male, especially around college women, college guys. No, seriously, share your perspective. I'm genuinely, because I think it's distraction.
The number one thing I've seen is that the majority of young people don't care about politics, and that's scary. Not only because they're just not prepared to vote. The majority of our generation can't pass a basic civic test that an immigrant passes when they come into this country. That's kind of sad. But the world is changing very quickly around us, and without being educated on the issues and without paying attention to the world around you, right, we're slowly letting our leaders take advantage of us. From a college male perspective, right, the universities have really started coming, this is going to be a controversial view, they've really come down on white males, right, in terms of admissions to colleges, right. It's gotten really brutal out there. We're treated very poorly in our classes, especially with our quote-unquote diversity professors, right. They favor women and minority or LGBTQ students, and white men tend to get the short end of the stick there. They think that they can just attack us, call us racist, call us homophobic, call us misogynistic, when a lot of that stuff just isn't true, right? And a lot of people just kind of sit there and take it because there's been such a long history of the glass ceiling and white men running this country, and all white guys are the bad guys. It's like, really not, right? It is racism to look at a white male and put all of the sins of our ancestors on our backs. Yeah. And college is an environment where that comes out the worst, right? I mean, I had several instances in college. I'll tell you about two of them. I was standing outside of the one of the main buildings for all of our classes, and I opened the door up for a girl, and smiled and said hi, and she looked at me and said I can open the door to myself, and she spit on me. I'm like, number one, battery, but two, like, really? Like, I'm just trying to be a nice guy opening the door for you, and you spit on me because I'm a white guy. Like, are you serious?
You know what? For a second, can we just talk about that statistic? What was it? It was like 30. Oh man, what was it? It was like 38% of young men, or like Gen Z men,
dating like 60-something% of
dating.
women.
Yeah. So if you translate that, it's like there's like 2 women to most men. So it's like,
I have not heard this.
It's crazy, like dating culture. Well, I feel like also if you don't have like kids and you don't have a family, you kind of don't have to think about politics. But right now we're seeing a lot of people avoiding families. Like the thought of marriage is like, no, I'm never going to do that. Like it's just like scary. And the thought of kids is like, it's like a ball and chain, it's like visual, it's like a prison, But women nowadays, I mean, they like, oh my gosh, it's just like, just promiscuous and just, I mean, I sound so like old-fashioned saying that.
But there's nothing wrong with that. I will be the first person to come out and tell you, like, what our society is doing to women is really caustic. There is no more important job in the entire world than raising a child. There is no more important job, and I don't care what anybody says, there is no more important job than raising a child. And to tell women, oh, you need to have a career, don't worry about having a family, push it off. Why? All the government is trying to doing is they're trying to separate families, right? You separate families, you put men and women in the workforce. Number one, you double your taxes. Number two, you separate the parents from their children, and you can indoctrinate the children however you want.
Yeah.
So, we need mothers in the home.
Yeah.
We need mothers raising their children. And having a proper nuclear family lowers crime rates. It increases your rate of graduating college and being successful in life. You look at prisons, right? The overwhelming majority of people in prison come from broken single-family households with no fathers, right? And not to say that single mothers can't do it on their own, but you need a family structure.
Yeah.
To tell women you shouldn't have a family, you should pursue your career. Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. I mean,
really?
the older you get, the more lonely you're going to be if you don't have a family there for you. And for the first time in our history, we have more women at 30 that are childless than with children.
Yeah.
That is a mind-boggling statistic, not only for our census data. I mean, our population is going to die off.
And it's harder to have kids when you're over 30,
exactly.
And you're seeing it's just so weird. You're seeing abortion is normalized. Meanwhile, another thing is you see people in their 20s, and I notice this among people my age, and I'm like, what in the world? Their parents, still take care of them, you know what I mean? In a sense, at least, mentally. If they're in college, it's their college takes care of them, or which is really their parent taking care of them. Or, their parents kind of are, forcing them to be an adult while they, figure out what they want to do with their life, which I'm starting to think that's just, another way of saying, I'm just going to, be lazy for, to be determined,
There's, it's really a meme, but there's a lot of truth to it. And it's this political square. And it goes through this cycle of, good times create weak men create hard times create strong men create good times.
I've heard that. Where did I hear
but
that?
if you look throughout human history, right, and let's just take the last 100 years, for example.
Okay.
Right? We had a civil war, hard times.
Yeah.
And a period of economic boom from all of the hard men or all the strong men that were created from that, and those good men created good times. After that, you had a period of laxation throughout the 10s and 20s, and from there, right,
Great Gatsby.
we had we had really good times, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of wealth that was being generated. And what happened next? The Great Depression.
Yes.
Hard times.
Well, and you had a sudden, a rise in people getting involved in politics because they were getting drafted and they were starting families, and it was oh my gosh, everybody's freaking out, And but then what came next?
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt you.
After the Great Depression, you have hard times. You have a First World War, right? More strong men being created. And we didn't really have time to cycle again. You get a Second World War, more strong men being created. And what came out of that? We had the 50s, the 60s, some of the greatest times in American history. And I think a lot of people will go back and say, oh, racism. But then again, the Civil Rights Movement came out of the 60s, right?
Yeah.
Good times were created by the strong men that were created in World War I and II.
Yeah.
Good times in the 60s. What happened in the period of the 60s, the 70s? We started. We've been in this cycle for a while now, where the good times were rolling for a long time. We had a couple decades of good times. What happened after that? We're starting to get weaker and weaker men. Right?
Yeah.
You got men these days. The bone density and testosterone levels are dropping.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Why is that? Men have just become weak. We aren't doing manual labor as much. We're not taking our health seriously. We've just become lazy as a society.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, once you get to a stage of weak men again, the next step is hard times, right? We're on the brink of war, potentially with China in the next couple of years over Taiwan. We're on the brink of potentially another depression or recession, and the hard times are coming.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people realize that. I mean, take the average high school or college student today.
Yeah.
The men. You think you could put a gun in their hands and tell them to take the hill, or do you think they'd go run screaming to their moms?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The men today are not the men that existed in the 20th century. In the 20th century, our dudes were jacked, You gave them a gun and told them to take the hill, and they rushed the hill. Right? We used to have real men. We don't have real men in this country anymore.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, what advice would you give to that high schooler right now? You know what I mean? Like, if you could talk to them, what would you say to them? Would you speak into their life? Like, what would it be? I was gonna say, would you speak into their life like, oh, don't drink the Kool-Aid, don't sleep around, don't just like meander around, like just pick a skill, that's something Carrie Lake always says, like just get married and get a trade, just start becoming a strong man. What advice would you give?
Do what your grandfather would have done. That's the best thing you can do. From not making excuses for yourself, not listening to the world around you. The world is going to tell you you're not good enough. The world is going to tell you, drink the extra soda, eat some Cheetos, sit down, play video games. Don't go to school, don't work hard. Your life is decided for you. That is what is killing this country right now. Men not taking their lives seriously. We used to have a generation of men that it didn't matter what you told them. They were going to work their butts off, and they were going to achieve everything they wanted to in life. They were going to protect their families. And society is telling those men that they're toxically masculine now. And I think that's an issue. There is no such thing as toxic masculinity. Okay, maybe actually I'm going to retract that comment. There are toxic men out there that like beat their wives and horrible things, commit crime. The overwhelming majority of men that are just purely masculine aren't toxic. Those are the men that build your society. All these women out here going, oh, you got toxic masculinity. What are you going to do without men? Who do you think builds the roads?
Yeah.
Who do you think builds the buildings?
Yeah.
Right? Does all the construction? Bricklayers. Really, women want to become bricklayers? Yeah. Oil refiners. You see what the dirty jobs these like giant muscular dudes do on these oil refineries? You think women want to go, turn those gigantic machines? Like, no, you don't. We need men to run society because men make up the majority of the physical labor force. Men, historically have protected their families and kept everything on track. And so when you move away from a nuclear family and you tell men not to be masculine anymore, you're only going to see negative effects. I would advise every person listening to this, go listen to Jordan Peterson and his podcast on men. And you know what? Don't go listen to Andrew Tate. Don't listen to Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate has some decent points. He talks about men need to be strong and men need to do all this stuff. That stuff is great. But he's also, not that great of a guy. No, you shouldn't be sleeping around. No, you shouldn't treat women, poorly. Like, men used to be chivalrous. We used to have an honor code where you treated women with a high level of respect. A woman dropped her handkerchief on the ground. You picked it up to her and said, "Madam, you dropped this." Right? We don't do that anymore. Some woman drops something, men just walk right past her. They don't open the door for her anymore. Like I probably sound like a grandpa right now, but like
no, that's what
men need to become men again. And so for all the teenagers out there, like, don't listen to society. Be strong. Be masculine. Go to the gym. Push around some weights. Read. Don't let society tell you can't do anything, and go accomplish everything in life. Just don't stop. Just continue to grind until you make it.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Also, this is something I want to always tell women and encourage women is, like that thing about it. It seems like women want to be in bad relationships right now. They want to be in situationships, and it's like, no, like
I don't even know what that means.
So situationship would be kind of like, hold on. It would be kind of
get the real definition over here.
Hold on. It's so what it would be basically kind of like a joyride without having any strings attached.
So what is that, like a long-term hookup or something?
Basically.
That sounds horrible. What are you getting out of that? Or, like, legitimately, are any of the women happy doing this?
You're getting instant gratification. Women crave attention. Women crave it. Like it's just.
You know what you should do? What? Go get one of those really nice guys. There's a breakdown. Like there's alpha males, beta males, omega males. I don't even know what the hell an omega male is. But the sigma male. I mean, don't be a sigma male. That's so cringe. There's alphas and betas out there. There are real men and then there are nice guys. You know, women don't typically want to date the nice guys. They want to date real men. Well, the problem is there's not a lot of real men out there anymore, right? And so you have all these guys that, you know, got crushed in a relationship or something, and they want to go out and, you know, play with women, and the women don't like have real options anymore. You want attention? Go find a real man. Yeah. That man will cherish you. He will take care of you. He will, you know, pay for everything. He will take care of you. You want attention? Go find a real man. Yeah. Stop sleeping around with a bunch of guys. That's not going to bring you any long-term happiness. And every psychological study shows that women and men that hook up on a regular basis are just unhappy.
Yeah. I noticed that, and I want to tell women too. You know, I mean, something I've noticed among my friends who do date boys, it's always like, just there's so much boy problems, but it's like I think. And this is kind of an idea from the 50s, is like, if you want to keep a man, you just like are nice to him. You know what I mean?
We're very simple creatures.
You just, yeah, exactly. Like, just be nice. Like, think about it. Like, be honest with yourself. Are you being nice? You know, are you? And when I say nice too, I mean like have good hygiene. Keep the like. I know, sexist, whatever. Keeping a house clean is like a requirement for like everyone. You know, like the homeless people outside. It's like. That when you lose that ability to just like keep up your living space, it's a serious problem, you know. So people might say that's sexist, but it's like no, like everybody wants that, you know what I mean? And but I think you know, if most women are like my friends, they just reject that right in my face, you know. They're like, you're sexist.
I think what these women are going to find as they grow older is that they're going to continue to be very unhappy. And, you know, if you don't learn how to take care of a man, you're going to learn how to take care of a cat by yourself. Like that's how it is. The majority of men in our age group there's a growing movement that don't want to be with these women, right? They're like, why? If you have you have podcasts, right? You get these women on you know, these podcasts, and they'll go, oh, okay, so what do you want in a man? And she'll go, he needs to be at least 6 foot. He needs to make 7 figures, which like is 0.001% of the population. He has to have a yacht, right? He has to be like with a 6-pack. It's like, number one, good luck finding that man. Even if you're like the, you know, most attractive, nicest, you know, loving caretaker in the world, you're still not going to find that guy. He doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But you know, and the guy will ask, well, what do you think? You know, you need to give to a man. She's like, oh, I'm enough. Really? Like, you're enough as you are. You want all these things from a man.
Yeah.
But you're just gonna come at it like, oh, I'm enough.
Yeah.
You're not gonna put time into your looks. You're not gonna put time into working out and keeping yourself healthy. You're not gonna, you know, cook for him. You're not gonna clean. Like, why would he want you?
Yeah.
And that's why these women are so unhappy and alone. It's like, you need to learn how to take care of him. If you want him to treat you like a queen, you need to treat him like a king. Period.
Yeah. And yeah, I think there's a lot of you know, self-awareness lacking in that. But Ellie, you know, we're gonna bring up a new issue just before, because we have about 10 minutes. But do you wanna bring up what you know, the conservatives on campus? You know.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I'm quite curious right now, because you were saying you've had like, how are people accepting or receiving actually conservative, like let's say conservative speakers? I'm pretty sure you've had conservative speakers come on campus.
See a smile.
Like what are you getting from there?
Ignorant hatred.
Okay.
That's what it is. It's ignorant hatred. People that have no idea what these people stand for. Everything they've heard from their friends or from some biased media channel, and they come out and they protest. You have kids that, you know, group up and they link arms and they make squawking noises in the middle of these speeches, or they do walkouts. It's like why? Like, are you accomplishing anything?
Yeah.
No, you're not. Like, you're not contributing to any type of intellectual diversity on campus. All you're doing is whining like a child.
Yeah.
And we have a university system that is far too many children. That is a huge issue. And honestly, the teachers and society are incentivizing it, which is a serious issue.
Yeah.
You know, the universities, you know, once the bastions of intellectual diversity and thought, you know, the Socratic method, asking questions, learning from it, they've just become these indoctrinating, you know, shovel feeding institutions. These students come in, they learn about diversity, equity, and inclusion and critical race theory, and they turn around and they just hate Republicans without doing any of their own research. So the speakers are just canceled, right? They don't let them speak oftentimes. I mean, even at, I think it was St. Thomas, it was a Catholic school, they didn't let Michael Knowles come. The administration said no.
Interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
What? You're telling a Catholic speaker he can't come and talk on your campus? Because of what? Because a few people on your campus are going to squawk and get angry? Like, that's ridiculous.
That's so interesting that even Catholic schools themselves are becoming so left, or even Christian schools too, that they're not willing to let on conservative people who would hopefully have the same values as them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, Loyola Marymount, some of the stuff that we had to deal with there. I mean, there was a club on campus that brought Planned Parenthood to do a fundraiser on a Catholic campus, and the school just let it happen. I brought a petition. It was like 23,000 Catholics. I delivered it to the president's office, and they were like, we can't do anything about it. Really? Yeah, Planned Parenthood, and you're going to just let them come in? You're going to give them a room? Like the school sponsored this by giving them a free room. The administration started placing women's products, tampons, in the men's restrooms.
What?
What?
That's
The only Catholic dorm on campus, a Catholic school, is one Catholic dorm, and it's not even a full dorm. It's like a single floor. It's like half of a floor in one building. Co-ed, there's women and men living right next to each other, and a transgender as the RA.
Yeah.
In the Catholic dorm, you got a transgender as the RA and women and men living right next to each other. Just blew my mind. So LMU has just gone down the drain completely.
Do they make you tiptoe around that kind of stuff a lot, or?
Oh, I didn't care.
I
Tiptoes around stuff. No, I generated a bunch of publicity, and we went on LifeSite and did a bunch of interviews and stuff. I don't know if it ended up doing anything, but a lot of people figured out that Loyola Marymount's not actually a Catholic institution anymore.
Interesting.
A lot of Catholic schools taking that same route. I'm worried about Notre Dame. The law school's still very conservative, but the undergrads are starting to go in that direction. Georgetown's lost. St. Thomas is lost. If you're Catholic, send your kid to Pope John Paul, the great Catholic University in San Diego. Apparently, they're still good.
Really? Oh boy, so we're running out of them.
Right.
So.
Yeah. That's not looking so good. I mean, the people who are going to these colleges and being educated that way, and then coming out like indoctrinated, even more.
Yeah.
But
that's why we're trying to fight back.
Right.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I know that you were saying that towards the beginning of it that you were hoping to save America, right? And your goal in that.
That's pretty bold.
What were you saying? Because I know that you have some type of goal that you want to reach by the end of it, and what would that be?
There's a motto that I go by, and it's a Latin phrase called ad meliora tempora, and the rough translation is towards better times. It's this past looking, like, this is how society used to be. Look how great it used to be. We used to be civilized. We used to have honor, integrity, virtue, and the society we live in now is lacking in all of those areas. We want to create a society that remembers our past. Right, and not the worst parts of our past, but the best parts of it. So what College Republicans of America is intended to do is to be a pipeline for conservative students that maybe went through Yaffin Turning Point, were once moderates or libertarians and became conservative, or just students that came conservatives. We train them, we teach them about our values and about inherent human dignity, the sanctity of life, respecting races and women. And normalcy in culture. We train them, we grow them into the next generation of leaders and businessmen and politicians. We ship them out to government jobs, we ship them out into industry. And slowly, over the next couple decades, the goal is that we'll have replaced enough of these children in government and business, because that's what they are, they're children.
Yeah.
And we start to bring a little bit of common sense back to society and balance out the scales.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I think that, it is common sense. I mean, there's a lot of, I don't want to have Republican values. I don't want to be like that, But it's like, I mean, it's like I'm not like cruel enough to be a liberal. I mean, they're like. That's
a really good way of putting it. I'm not cruel enough to be a liberal. They often say that Republicans in their youth are brainless and liberals,
Yeah. I've heard that.
Conservatives when they're young are heartless. Liberals when they're older are brainless. Why? Why is it that you're heartless as a Republican? Like, what are really the Republican values? We believe in individualism, free speech, the sanctity of human life, inherent human dignity, and respect for all people.
Yeah.
Why is that heartless?
Yeah.
But the left paints us in these, 4-letter phrases like "my body, my choice."
Yeah.
And that's just an ideology, right? Like you've indoctrinated an entire group of people to believe in 4 letters and like just, take it on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not having a heart, right? Having a heart is believing in virtue and believing in inherent human dignity and respecting people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ellie, you're still at that high school age. Like, what do you think it is? Kind of speaking off of that.
Of like sort of what?
Just like just what you said. Can you say it one more time for the people in back?
Being a Republican
right.
isn't being heartless. It's about free speech, individualism, right? Inherent human dignity, the sanctity of life, and honoring and respecting people, right? That is not a heartless ideology. It's an ideology of love. And when you twist it through political rhetoric, which by the way most of the time is just a logical fallacy ad populum, right?
Yeah.
You can't just believe these talking points. Really look at what the Republican platform is standing for. Is it really a party of hate, or is it the party that wants to let you live your life and asks you to respect others? The golden rule: respect others and treat others as you'd like to be treated. We've lost that.
Yeah.
I know like people high school aged. I know a lot of them, and I'm pretty sure, I know them. They don't think like that. They think that Republicans are very much, like you mentioned, are very heartless, right? And that's honestly really sad. I mean, that's why we're doing this, right? To show that other side. But just talking from people my age, like my friends, they would think that, like my body, my choice is a really big thing for them.
Yeah.
Especially the women that I know. And they will literally sit there and almost cry, and some of them really do cry because of the fact that they believe that somebody was taking away their rights when,
Rights.
right, yeah. they think that it's taking away their rights when they're not able to do an abortion, right? So we're seeing a very much emotional group of people that are being, our leadership is not helping by making that, I guess, validating that emotions that they're feeling.
No, I mean,
so
I could talk for an hour about the
yes.
abortion.
I know, me too.
She could too.
Well, yeah, no, I think that also they're prescribing a lot of it. I mean, look at how many women are like on like birth control pill. Birth control pill is not healthy. It's not healthy. It makes you crazy. And I think we're seeing like so many emotional responses because these women are like just being prescribed this and that, and it's just like you're not sane right now, You're just like, I think you're just being played, honestly, But, yeah, like you said, I could talk about this for an hour, so. But we only have 3 minutes.
I know, we do.
Oh, no. So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it is time to wrap up, but, we're going to be back here next week.
Right.
I don't know. With who?
I'll definitely, well, I might have some friends over, so we'll look at that. But
yes,
for those of you who haven't checked out our Instagram yet, we actually are closing up, we're close to 1,000 followers. So we have 983 followers, I think, last time I checked. So that's crazy.
Especially for a new Instagram.
That's
I'm proud of that.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. Yeah. So on Instagram, you can find us at 180.shift, and then TikTok and Twitter would be 180shift, so without the dot. But you can also find us online at 180movement.org. And also, we do have an event that's local here in LA. We actually have a menudo contest coming up. Ooh. So, yeah. So we'll definitely share that on our Instagram and our TikTok. So check that out. We'll put some more information there. But that's happening on June 25th and in North Hollywood. And there's going to be like some, I guess, a prize actually. So if you win the menudo contest, so if you guys like menudo, and you can make it, definitely check that out. But we'll definitely put some more info in our social media.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for those announcements, Ellie. And any closing remarks from our wonderful guest?
Thanks for having me on. This was really fun. Talking. I would invite everyone listening to check out our website. It's uscollegegop.com. uscollegegop.com. Get involved with a local chapter. Talk to a couple of Republicans. See what they have to say. And I think what you'll find is that we're really not as bad as you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, that's true.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We really, we hope to have you back in the future, and we'll all have different stories then.
I'd love to come back.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I will just say we have about a minute and a half, although I'm probably just
It's fine.
I'm gonna
Well,
stop
you know
early.
what? Thank you so much for everybody that's watching. We'll definitely stay tuned for next week. We'll have some more guests come on. We'll see who it is, and we'll talk more. Maybe some more current events.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.